So this is not my typical video. It's a blend of humor and motivation. No law in it. If that bothers you, you can feel free to pass right on. I won't bother me a bit. But I guess you could also think of it as a video about how to avoid divorce. Here's what we're talking about today. Yesterday there was a kidnapping in our neighborhood. Ginger B. Reed was minding her own business when she was abducted without warning. She was blindfolded, and her kidnappers sent a ransom note via text. Now, Ms. Reed is an exceptionally sweet person. She has a smile on her face at all times. She's the kind of person who never minds if you have to lay your head on her shoulder for a little while. How could someone kidnap and blindfold her? It's just unbelievable. But that's what happened. In fact, here's the photo with the ransom note. Okay, you got me, handcuffed me, I'm busted. Here's the ransom note itself so you can see it just a little bit clearer. And here's the backstory. On Tuesdays, Taco Tuesdays, of course, we always go somewhere that serves Mexican food. There are only about 4,099 different Mexican restaurants between Opelika and Auburn, Alabama, and some of them even serve food that will not give you food poisoning. Frankly, the only one that I actually enjoy going to, the only two, are Chipotle and Moe's. But to make a long story short, we often wind up going to Moe's because it's a little cheaper than Chipotle. So rather than sending my wife just another dumb text saying, hey, you want to go get some dinner at Moe's, I decided to get a little creative. So last weekend, we went to Montgomery and we purchased this gingerbread doll. I guess you could call it a stuffed toy, whatever it is. I'm going to call it a gingerbread doll. And a couple of weeks before that, we had purchased this snowman. They made a nice matching set on our bed. And having the personality that I have, I like to tease Ginger about the gingerbread doll being mine because obviously I love Ginger. And she teases me right back, saying that I should keep my hands off of her gingerbread man. You see, we even have a debate as to the gender of this stuffed toy, which makes absolutely no sense. It's almost like she believes that poem about, you know, run, run as fast as you can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man. Anyway, over the last few weeks, I've been doing different things when I make the bed in the morning to the snowman because we didn't have anybody to go with the snowman at that point. I put sunglasses on him. I've put a toboggan on him. I put a neck pillow around his neck, claiming that he had a neck injury, and that was his cervical collar. And then I put it underneath him, saying, well, obviously he has hemorrhoids. In each of these instances, my wife would laugh and then she'd fuss at me and tell me that I should leave her snowman alone. So now, with the gingerbread doll, I had this new toy that I could mess with, and this is what I chose to do. This is the text message. It says, Ginger B. Reed or gingerbread girl is in pain, is in peril. And so I knew that would catch her attention. Here's the emoji she sent back when she received the text. And of course, here's my response. We agreed to meet at 5 that night at Moe's, and we had a good dinner last night. So now we get into the motivational part of this. There are so many people that confuse physical intimacy with being in love. As a young man, I certainly did. That's not love, that's something else. In my case, it happened to be stupidity. In order to be in love, you have to commit to staying in love. And how do you stay in love? Sometimes it's not easy. Day to day stresses, especially financial stresses, can make that very difficult. So you have to commit to working at staying in love. You have to communicate. And you have to do that by exercising your sense of humor in a responsible way and thinking before you speak. although I am loath to admit it because I'm afraid my wife might actually see this video and query me about these instances. There are many times that my wife does something or says something that irritates me. For example, she has the unusual habit of locking the bottom door lock on our garage, which has a cipher lock which turns a deadbolt so you can get in by entering the code, and that way we're the only people who can get into it. And although we have a key somewhere in this house to that back door, I don't want to have to go find it. Now, that could be a real problem in an emergency because I have no idea where that key is. But for the most part, I just walk through the house, walk around the house to the garage door, and use the panel on the garage door to raise the garage door. Rather than getting my blood pressure up and her dander up, I don't say anything about it. I ask myself this question: will this incident really matter in 10 years? And of course, it won't. Things where it will matter, I think long and hard about how I wish to broach the subject, and then when we're sitting down, enjoying a quiet evening, I'll perhaps recount it in the most pleasant way possible and suggest that there are better ways to do whatever it is, or ask her for suggestions about how we might fix that problem, make it a working solution kind of thing where both people contribute. You know, Zig Ziglar used to say that if you want to take the chip off somebody's shoulder, the way to do that is to let them take a bow. Well, if you want to solve a problem that you're having with someone, especially someone that you love, involve them in solving the problem. Don't hand them the solution, like, quit locking that door. Rather, you say, is there a way that we could agree to use the top lock instead of the bottom lock? I'm just asking, or is there some other way you think we could avoid locking me out of the garage? And by doing that, you involve them in the problem solving process and you both get to own the result. My wife's done that to me numerous times. I mean, that's where I learned it. I have the bad habit of leaving the drawer that has our silverware in it, which is the top drawer. I have a bad habit of leaving that open when I'm working on the cutting board, cutting up something, and sometimes little pieces of stuff fall into that drawer. And my wife will not allow that to happen. She pulls all the silverware out, runs it through the dishwasher, scrubs out the drawer, and it makes me feel, about that big. And so yesterday she said, do you remember why we closed this drawer? I'm like, no, but I'm sure you're going to tell me. And she told me, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I left it open. I'll try to do better. That's that's the nicest thing that you can do for someone, is to involve them in the problem solving process. And it's a great way to build the relationship, and it's a great way to stay in love. Even if you think it's dumb because you've only dropped food in there once in the last 3 years, it's a good thing to remember that this is the person you love most in the world, and it'd be a really good thing if you worked on saying things that were sweet. It's always good to use sweet words when dealing with your wife because sooner or later you're going to have to eat those words. So that's always been well received in our house. And the thing that often kills relationships is words that are spoken in anger. Because it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, if you approach a subject by speaking about it angrily, you give your words no power. You effectively put all of the power in your message in the way it's delivered and not in the content of your message. In other words, the medium, shouted angry words, becomes the message. And that message says, I don't really care about you. When really all you're trying to do is solve a problem. And so I offer these suggestions because I know there are many people out there every day who run into problems like this and who have trouble trying to work effectively with their spouse. They love them to death, but sometimes it's easy to fall out of love over time if you don't make a daily effort to stay in love. There are also people who try to hide snarky comments and mean thoughts behind the fabric of jokes. And if it was only a joke, that'd be fine. You know, then you could say, gosh, what's wrong with you? Can't you take a joke? But if what you are really doing is insulting them or telling them that they're wrong or humiliating them or rebuking them, that's not a joke and it's not funny. Lots of jokes like that are not funny. And when you sheathe a sharp knife behind a faint attempt at humor, the result is that the person hearing the joke perceives it as an insult or an attack and not as humor. So if I use humor, I use it in a way that is not destructive of our relationship. In a regular evening, I will share memes with my wife, and she will share Instagram reels with me that she finds hilarious. Yesterday, in fact, she showed me a reel of a deer breaking through a window. The window was in the bathroom of this house, and there was a guy sitting there on the toilet at the time. And the deer broke through the window and came running through, and he was quickly followed into the window by a giant brown bear whose head was about 5 times the size of the head of the man, whose eyes were about this wide. And as a result, he jumped up and got out of there pretty quickly. My wife had one response to that video, and it was, I'd be moving. And I have to agree, that would be absolutely true. But at least the poor fellow was sitting in the right place in that room when that happened, because I'm sure that would have been my first response. I guess it's a good place to be if you have to have that experience. We get to talk about funny things and we share funny things back and forth, and we keep the humor alive in our life that way. And we keep the love alive in our life that way. And I share this again because right now there are people in your life that are going through a really awful time, and you may not even know it. They may come to work every day, they may not seem like their old self, but you give them some space because maybe they're a little cranky and you just kind of chalk it off to them having a bad day. But a lot of times when people are in crisis, the best thing you can do for them is to sit down and chat with them. Not ask them about what their problem is, just sit and chat. Because if they have a problem, sometimes they will open up, and then you can do the kind thing, which is just to listen. Sometimes just listening to somebody, validating the fact that you hear them, is enough to keep people away from the very dangerous edge that people sometimes get close to when their relationships have problems. And far and away, the most important thing you can do in the most important relationship in your life is to spend time together. Now, my wife works during the day, and of course, I work here in my house during the day making these videos. But in the evening, we spend that time together. I don't go off with the boys and party. I don't make an effort to do anything that doesn't involve my wife. Because at 70 years old, I know I don't have that much longer left. And I don't want to have regrets when I start going toward the light. I want to have good memories. And I guess the only example of things that I do that don't involve my wife is this channel. And that's because my wife taught school for 26 years. She taught math in high schools and college. And she doesn't really have anything more she needs to say in front of a group of people. That doesn't stop her from saying things she needs to say to those other people to me because she knows that 99% of the time I'll be agreeing with her. And even if I don't, I will listen patiently and nod my head. She doesn't want to go on camera, and that's why she's not appearing in this video. I really can't say that I blame her. Some people find it terribly distressing to be in front of a camera. A couple of days ago, we were at a work event for my wife. We had lunch together, everybody who was there. And a couple of the people were talking about a video they'd seen, and they said, I could never make a video like that where you get up and you teach something because I'd just be so, afraid, so embarrassed. And I said, look, I, I talk to 42,000 people every day, sometimes multiple times a day. The truth is, you really can do whatever you need to do if you set your mind to it. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are generally always right. Now, my wife is a very kind person. That makes it especially easy to be kind to her. We have other people in our lives that are not kind people or they don't act kindly toward us, and it's often very difficult to be kind to them. But when we are, it breaks down barriers one kind act at a time. That's why I ask everybody at the end of these videos to do it just one kind thing for someone that day. And it doesn't matter how big or small that kind thing is. Just do it. You'll feel better about it. You'll feel better about yourself. We have a nice young woman who cleans our house every 2 to 3 weeks. She charges $150, but I almost always pay $160 because I feel like she spends her gas money getting here. Doing just a little bit more than you're asked to do is an exceptionally kind thing, and you never know how important that kind act will be to someone later on. So that's what I have for you today. It's not my traditional legal talk and message, but the law is not what I'm all about. I'm a Christian first, a husband second, and a lawyer third. I am called to love everyone, and I sometimes fall short in that regard. But I try very hard to uphold Christian values, and I know all of you have seen me fail in that regard several times on this channel. But you also know at the same time that I keep trying. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee, anything that makes their day better. That would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.